Have you ever listened to a culture speaking, even when no words are spoken? Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, respected judges, and everyone watching this video. My name is Mufliha Intanurani from the English Education Department, University of Jember. And I proudly come from a small regency with a powerful cultural soul, Bondowoso. Today, I invite you not only to listen to my voice, but also to the voice of my culture, through a speech entitled, When Tradition Finds Its Voice. Ladies and gentlemen, communication is not merely about speaking. It is about how we show respect, how we express identity, and how we pass a meaning from one soul to another. And in Bondowoso, communication truly lives inside culture. Culture and communication are inseparable. Culture shapes the way people speak, move, and behave, while communication becomes the bridge that keeps culture alive across time. Through communication, people transmit their values, their beliefs, and their identity. So, when people communicate, they are not only sending messages, they are actually showing who they are. Ladies and gentlemen, in Bondowoso, verbal communication is guided by a strong Madurese philosophy known as Bappa, Babbu, Guru, Ratoh. This philosophy teaches us that the highest respect in life must be given to our parents, our teachers, and our leaders. This value controls the way we speak. We are taught not to raise our voice to our parents, not to speak carelessly to our teachers, and not to talk arrogantly to others. Growing up in Bondowoso, I learned that speaking is not a reaction, it is a moral responsibility. Every word must carry respect, humility, and self-control. This shows that in Bondowoso, verbal communication is not merely about delivering information, but about preserving dignity and honor. Communication in Bondowoso is not only spoken, it is also performed through traditional arts. One of the strongest symbols of our identity is the Singo Ulung Dance. Through powerful movements and firm expressions, this dance communicates courage, leadership, and responsibility. But Singo Ulung is not only a cultural symbol for me, it is also part of my personal journey. A few years ago, I once wrote a story script about Singo Ulung, about its values, its struggle, and its meaning for our people. At the time, I didn't think about winning. I only wanted its story to be heard. Yet, that simple attention led to something unforgettable. I won a competition. At that moment, I realized something powerful. Local culture can speak loudly as long as someone is brave enough to give it a voice. Since then, I no longer see Singo Ulung as only a dance. I see a voice, a story, and a part of myself. This is where I truly understood that communication does not always come from the mouth. Sometimes it comes from movement, stories, and courage. Culture, ladies and gentlemen, is a lost art if it's not communicated. When parents in Bondowoso share stories with their grandchildren, parents practice practical values through everyday actions, and teachers introduce local tradition to the school. Despite the darkness, I recall listening to village stories and sitting in silence with my elders, learning without realizing that I was receiving my identity. The way that communication links generation is no longer through technology or screens, but rather through voices, stories, and presence. Ladies and gentlemen, today we are in digital age. Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube are all platforms used by young people to communicate. Local culture is often feared to be going away, but in my area of Bondowoso, the opposite is true. The younger generation has taken to document traditional dances, promote local cuisine, share village traditions, and even tell local stories in English. These changes have become more common It is demonstrated that cultural preservation cannot be achieved through modern communication, but rather through safeguarding it. As an English education student, I believe that English serves as a bridge between local culture and the global community, rather than posing lingering stereotypes. Ladies and gentlemen, my fellow citizens from Bondowoso have learned that communication is not just about talking, but also about maintaining one's identity. Our values are communicated to the future through respect, dancing traditions together, telling stories, and even helping each other in silence. I'm not the sole speaker today, but rather a young student who holds sway over local culture and its unwavering spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, our generation should not be limited to global trends, but rather embrace their local way of life. The world is influenced by cultural expression. That's all my speech. Thank you very much for your attention. Forgive me for any mistakes on my speech. And the last I say, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.